This is kite buggying. As you can see, it's a small vehicle pulled along by a kite. There is also kite sailing. However, kite buggies go faster because the power source, the kite, is higher up where the wind is stronger. Speeds of 60 miles an hour are not unusual. Obviously, the buggy is made of strong, light and above all modern materials. But in fact, this type of vehicle is nothing new. Something very similar to the kite buggy was first built 200 years ago. Let's find out what happened. If you had been on the road between Bristol and Marlborough in the 1820s, you might have seen a very unusual sight. A carriage moving along at high speed, but this carriage didn't have horses, nor was it powered by one of the new steam engines. The motive power was two kites, and its driver and inventor was George Pocock, a schoolmaster. Let's go back a bit. George Pocock was born in Hungerford in England in 1774 and died in 1843. He had been interested in kites from an early age, and he had always been impressed by the power of the wind at higher altitudes. He wondered if it could be put to good use. Why not invent a road vehicle? One of the driving forces behind his idea was the fact that in the early decades of the 19th century, keeping horses had become incredibly expensive, mainly due to the cost of fodder. Why not use the wind instead of horses? The wind was, after all, free. Well, it still is. Another advantage is that such a contraption would not have to pay the road tolls and taxes, which in that period were levied on all horse-drawn vehicles and made travelling by road very expensive. It is no coincidence that this was the same time or period of the development of the railways, which I've covered in various other videos. His first trip in 1822 was a limited success, and he needed to work on the size and design of the kites. George Pocock taught at a school in Bristol, and he used his pupils as assistants and sometimes as subjects of his kite experiments. By 1820 he had determined that in combination kites could support considerable weight and began experimenting with man-lifting kites. In 1824 he used a 30-foot, 9-metre kite with a wicker chair to lift his daughter Martha over 270 feet, 82 metres, into the air and across Avon Gorge. Either she loved adventure or was a very obedient daughter. Alas, we will never know. However, she, in later life, was the mother of the world-famous cricketer W.C. Grace. Later the same year, he lifted his son to the top of a cliff outside Bristol. His son briefly dismounted from the chair at the top of the 200-foot, 60-metre cliff. In 1826, he patented the design of his Charvolant buggy. This used two kites on a single line which could extend to 1,500 feet or 457 metres to provide enough power to draw along a buggy carrying several passengers at considerable speed. In his book, Pocock records that it performed at a rate of 20 miles an hour, 32 kilometres an hour, over considerable distances, and that a mile could frequently be covered, even over the rough roads of the period, in less than 3 minutes. A group of 3 Charvolants made the trip of 113 miles, 182 kilometres, together on a run between Bristol and Marlborough. One of the buggies sailed past the mail coach, which at that time was the fastest form of transport available. Although it went very fast with a following wind, it could also tack against the wind just like a sailing boat. He came up with the name Charvolant from the French word for carriage, char, this word later meant tank, and the French word for kite, chef volant. So why didn't it catch on? There are 2 main reasons. The first is that the driver has to control the steering of the vehicle and at the same time control 2 kites that are very high in the air, and these kites determine the speed of the vehicle. Even modern kite buggies are quite challenging to control, where the hands are used to control the kite and the feet are used to steer. Let's not talk about brakes. One solution would have been to have two drivers, but that would have increased the weight. The other big problem was that if a number of Charvolants were passing each other, it is very likely that the kite lines would get tangled. Horses, whatever their defects and whatever the cost, are generally pretty good at avoiding each other. Some attempts were made to use kites to power boats, and it is rumoured that Pocot himself was involved in an attempt to power a Mersey ferry boat powered by kites. This may have gained traction with time, but steam power was progressing fast and quickly cornered the market. The advantage of steam and future-powered vehicles, whether on land or at sea, was that they are easier to control and also far more predictable. Kite-powered vehicles were a technological dead end. Having said that, with concerns about pollution caused by ships, there is still interest in using kites at least as an aid to propulsion. The obstacles are the same as before: difficulty in use and the unpredictable nature of the wind. We'll see if that gets anywhere. Bye for now.